Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney.
I'm MK.
How are you?
You know, I'm I'm good. I'm great. Um, Friday I went out to lunch and shopping with just my mom and my sister, and it was really
Oh,
nice.
lovely.
And then we reserved our spot at a bridal expo because my sister got engaged, not because of me.
Right. No. Yeah,
Yeah.
I followed.
My sister got engaged, and so we were going to a bridal expo. But if you think that me trying to help her plan her wedding hasn't turned into me also actively planning my
Planning.
wedding,
Right, yeah. No.
um, but I think I have a venue set on.
Is it in Buffalo?
Yeah, it's at Shay's.
It's at Shay's?
Yeah, they do weddings on like you can do your reception on stage there and like take
Oh,
pictures at the theater. And I was like, yeah,
I would love
if
that.
if
And I
I
can
if I
put up a
don't get to
picture beside my Moody Blues Shay picture in my office.
if I don't get to get married at a castle,
Sure.
that's a pretty good second choice.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah. But so I've been doing wedding planning and then Saturday Dan came over for dinner and it was just me and my mom and dad and Dan and we had
Oh,
dinner and then we played trivia games and it was just
love that.
yeah. And then we decided we're trying to get more healthy for London. And we just like went for an hour walk today. But like instead of trying to like worry about fitness, we like when we went for our walk, we walked around this neighborhood that's like the most expensive part of his neighborhood and looked at all the houses that we can never afford to buy. The house that we both like the most is not for sale, but when it did, it is its current estimate of value, if it were to go back up for sale, is about $600,000.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds about right. On,
So,
on your teacher salaries, yeah.
yeah. So, other than the fact that I will never be able to afford to move out of my parents' house, I'm great.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
It could be worse. Could be worse. You
Yeah,
like your parents, so.
that's true. Could you imagine if I didn't? How
Oh.
about you? How are you?
I am not mentally in one place today.
Oh, good.
So my brain is just in all kinds of places. And I was like, what am I going to talk about? And then I was thinking, tonight is the first soon to be monthly event for that Caitlin is putting on, Caitlin Richards. And it's only 5 blocks from my apartment, which is great.
Yes.
It's like an invite only open mic style, but it's meant to be more for musicians by musicians as opposed to just like open mic at a bar. It's a bit more
Oh,
formal and it's invite only. And then there's like gonna be an industry professional there. Turns out the industry professional is me. So
nice.
I am the industry professional now, which is strange for me, but makes sense. I mean, I've been doing this for like what, like 8 years, 6, 7 years, but like so I guess so. I guess now's the time um,
Correct.
to finally be a professional.
I
Um,
love that.
I did recently learn some heartbreaking news, unless this was just like day of, but the squid at the place across the street that I like, they didn't have it the last time,
Oh no.
and I don't know if they're not doing it anymore. I was very sad about that.
That would be awful.
Um, it would be because I've been really craving that lately too. Maybe I'll check on my way home to see if just to see if I could get a little snack.
Perfect.
Because they're open till like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
I'll be home at like 11 probably. And I'm drinking wine out of my water bottle that I usually reuse for water, but it was closer by, so it's
Fantastic.
fine. Um, so that's just kind of like if you find a summation of all of the things I just said to you, that's where my brain's at right now. But otherwise, like I'm fine,
Fantastic.
doing okay. You know
I'm
what makes me better?
what's that?
Spiritual affirmations.
Well, this is a simple one.
Great.
It is from today's birthday person that I found, and today is Mandy Moore's birthday.
Oh, I love Mandy
I
Moore.
love Mandy Moore, and she has said some really great things, but I'm going with a real simple one. And she's quoted as saying, "Hope is the most exciting thing there is in life."
Truly, though. Truly, though. Ugh, love that. You know what else is the most exciting thing in life?
It's that.
We're finally starting American Horror Story.
Uh,
Ah!
yes.
So, as we mentioned last week, our in between shows, we're going to do a season of American Horror Story. So, of course, this is the week we are starting with American Horror Story, season 1, episode 1, which is the pilot of the entire show. And this season is Murder House. I'm
Sure is.
so stoked. Do you have any like beginning thoughts before I get into my background? Like, but not about the show, but like how'd you feel before you started it?
Well, the thing is, at this point, American Horror Story is kind of an institution, and like everybody talks about it. And I knew absolutely nothing. Like, I knew that like Jessica Lange and Evan Peters were in it, and that's like about everything I really knew. Um, I remember after the first season came out and then the second season started, people were really confused that they weren't related. And like obviously now that has gone away because the show has gone on and is much more anthologized.
Right.
Um, and I just I don't know anything about like the overall plots of things, except for I kind of know the plot of season three. Is Coven three or
Yeah,
four?
it's 3.
Okay, and so I know that. But like the other day, I was with my friend Brittany, and she started explaining to me this movie or show that she had watched that she couldn't remember what it was, and she was describing all of these things that happened, and I was like, "What the fuck are you watching?" It turned out it was an episode of the most recent season,
Oh, NYC.
I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, was it MIC? No, it was from American Horror Stories.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched the second group of American Horror Stories. I've only seen the first.
Yeah. Well, when you get to this one, it's episode 7. Just be prepared. It is fucking bonkers. And I, knowing literally that much, was like, what am I gonna do? Like, I don't know what's gonna happen here. So yeah, I realized recently I had this conversation with Dan and Doug that we watched John Wick for the first time and they asked me how I felt about it. And I was like, as action movies go, I appreciate that it's a very good action movie.
Mhm.
But I don't like action movies. And I've realized that when there's extended action sequences, I zone out even when I'm trying really hard to pay attention. And sometimes with horror, if things get really like
Gruesome.
gruesome or like overly not believably ridiculous, I do the same thing where I just like I'm trying, but I really only pay attention to things for plot and character. So if there isn't that, I cannot focus.
Fair.
So I was not sure what to expect in terms of that. And I still don't know what to expect in terms of that. I'm going to be honest.
Great. No, that's fine. That's exactly where you should be right now. It's exactly where I want you. So
Fantastic.
perfect. Um, but yeah, on that note, I do have a bit of a longer intro, obviously, because we're starting a new show.
Yeah.
So buckle up, Buttercup, because we're starting American Horror Story.
Yes.
I'm so excited. I'm like so
Yeah.
tired, but I'm so stoked. So I'm like, I'm gonna have energy. I'm gonna have all the
Got
energy.
this. You got this.
Whew. So this whole thing premiered on October 5th of 2011. I was starting college. I was a fresh music major and I was living my best life. What
I was starting, no, 2011.
you were starting your
I
sophomore year of
I was
college.
starting my sophomore year of college. I was dating my ex, planning, like, I think the next weekend was the first time I went to go visit him in his apartment in New York City. Like,
Mhm.
I was thriving,
It's a
about to
wild
go.
time.
It was a wild time. I was probably not sober for a lot of that time, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Um, well, this episode was rated 7.9 out of 10, which feels kind of high for a pilot,
Feels
surprisingly.
kind of high
Although
for a pilot, and also it still feels kind of high having seen it. I wonder how many people rated it in retrospect.
I feel like hit or miss because there's things that I like
Yeah.
that I know everyone else hated about it. So like
Well, there's things that I really liked, but like I said, my only word to describe where I'm at for the show right now is confused,
yeah,
and which I think is intentional,
it
but
is.
I also don't think that if I rated it after having watched only that, I could give it a high rating. Like
I think that's fair.
I would probably put it somewhere around like 6.5. Not
Yeah,
because it was bad, but because I genuinely don't understand what's happening.
right. And I think that's totally fair. Um, the number one song at this time was Moves Like Jagger by Maroon 5.
Sure was.
The number one movie was Real Still. And the number one book was Heat Rises by Richard Castle.
What is that movie?
Real Still, I was gonna say it came out. We were in college. You remember? I didn't look it up, but it was like I think that was the big like robot movie where they were like fighting each other. Do you remember that? Was that Real Still?
Oh, I haven't. It might be, but apparently I have no recollection.
Let's see. Yeah, I think so. It had
Oh,
Hugh Jackman. Yeah, they were
okay.
boxing. Robots that were boxing.
Yeah, wow. I have exactly zero remembrance of this movie at all. I did not know this existed.
That's probably best. I never watched it because like I didn't want to, but
I also
it
didn't really have time to watch movies because the first semester of my sophomore year in college was also the first time that I stayed, like I was the ASM for the big fall play. So I for sure did not have time to worry about what was at the movies.
yeah, I didn't watch movies then either because that's whenever I it was my first quarter of so I had quarters, so like the first week of November were finals. And so we're in the
Mm,
middle of football season. While I'm a music major, I'm taking 9 classes a quarter. So I'm like leaving rest and a lot of time like after midnight and coming back at like 7 a.m. for my 9 classes
yeah,
a day type thing. Was it 9 classes a day? It was 9 classes for the quarter. But it's very hectic. And so I didn't watch a lot of movies either.
yeah.
But that was just not one that really was.
No, I was taking three fun 400 level history classes as a sophomore while trying to run, like, stage manage the fall play, which was a Shakespeare. So, like, I for sure did not know.
Yeah,
And I had just started dating someone new.
right. Yeah,
There was
totally.
no chance that I went to the movies.
Yeah. On this day, because we're starting a new horror show, I thought, why not just talk about all the deaths that happened this day?
Great.
Because there sure are some notable ones. Bert Jantz, who is a Scottish folk musician, he died at 67. I don't know if you know him. I know he was a co-writer on some of the stuff we have in our office. That's how I know him.
Cool.
Charles Napier, the American actor for Night Stalker and Rambo, dies at 75. Derek Bell, the American legal scholar and civil rights advocate, died. Um, Fred Shuttlesworth, who was an American civil rights activist, died at 89. Graham Dilley was an English cricket fast bowler who died from
Esophageal. Yeah.
esophageal cancer at 52. And last, but certainly not least, as the article says, this is the day Apple died. And we lost Steve Jobs at 56.
Oh,
So,
that's,
real bummer of a day. A lot of people died.
yeah.
Like, a lot of people die every day, but a lot of people that like other people knew died.
Yeah, that's
So wanted to bring us down a bit before we get into it.
great.
Um, I will note that there will probably not be a lot of change up in directors, writers, and editors throughout the series from now until the end of time. Not just this season. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna get into it now, but I may never talk about it again. So
so
the director is, of course, Ryan Murphy,
of
who is
course.
known for, among other things, Glee, The Prom, Pose, and I didn't realize he was. I always forget he was the director on The Watcher, the new show with Bobby
Oh,
Cannavale.
Cannavale.
Cannavale, I always say his name wrong. He came to the bar one night. Super nice guy.
Oh, I'm so
Um,
jealous that you met him.
yeah, he was super nice. Apparently, he used to come in all the time.
That makes
Uh,
sense.
some fun facts about him. He was the president of the Meryl Streep fan club.
I think I knew that actually.
I didn't, and I was thrilled to learn that. He sold a script to Spielberg titled "Why Can't I Be Audrey Hepburn?" before he was like anybody. He received his Hollywood star on the Walk of Fame December 4th of 2018. And last but not least, Nip Tuck, which I haven't seen and I know I should. I know I'd love it, is
Yeah,
inspired by an unpublished expose he wrote.
interesting. Because that
Right?
was Nip Tuck's way before Ryan Murphy
I
like
know.
became Ryan Murphy.
Sure. But Nip Tuck was it that far before Glee though? It was like it was in the early 2000s still, right?
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think because Nip Tuck was happening around the same time as the original series of Charmed, because the guy who was the lead in Nip Tuck was one of like the demon who Alyssa Milano's character was in
Oh,
love with in Charmed. Yeah, and Cole, and he like left the show and was doing Nip Tuck, and that's why his guest appearances like started being less
interesting. Hmm.
popular.
I
Um,
do not
hmm.
know. I
Oh,
thought
2003.
okay, and then Glee was shortly after that, yeah, like 2005 or something.
Glee was not till 2009.
2009.
Yeah, because I was gonna say the season two of Glee was what I watched my freshman year of college with all my weird music friends.
Yeah, yeah, good times. Um, yeah, so that's Ryan Murphy. And maybe we'll have some more fun facts about him through life because he is literally everywhere.
Did did
Um,
he did he work on the assassination of Gianni Versace? Did I make that up?
he worked on one of those, but I
That's
don't
that's
remember
the
the
Versace is the one with
I haven't
Darren
watched it.
Criss in it. But it's the one
Oh,
with
yes,
Darren.
I think yes, that is the one he worked on.
That makes
Because
sense
I was
because
like, I remember he worked on one of those that came out around that time, and I was like, was it House of Gucci? Was it Versace? Was it? I couldn't remember which one, but
yeah.
yes, it was still on Darren Criss. Um, so our writers, Ryan
Mm-hmm.
Murphy and Brad Falchuk, um, they basically work on the same shows all the time. So he's on also all of those shows, except I don't know that he was a part of The Watcher, but he was Glee, The Prom, and Pose, and then he also was a writer for American Impeachment that just came out recently.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and I have only one fun fact about him, and it is that he's married to Gwyneth Paltrow, which I did not know.
You know, I love her.
Yeah,
She's
she is a person who is interesting
she is
for sure.
fascinating. That is
Yeah,
like a level of psychology that I don't think I have time for in my life, and I want to know everything.
yeah. And our editor is Bradley Waker, Brecker. I can't read my own handwriting, but I would imagine he's also going to be throughout most of the show because he also worked on Glee, The Prom,
This,
and Pose. And then his other title that wasn't with them is Eat, Pray, Love. Just why not?
why
Why not
not?
go off the rails? Um, Now there are obviously a lot of stars in this show and a lot that are going to need to be talked about. But I just started with the top four build cast, and I'll
Okay.
go from there because I just not enough hours to
Yeah.
talk about every cast member today.
Right, right, right.
So I started with, of course, Connie Britton, who plays Vivian Harmon. These are things I have not seen her in, but apparently these are what she's known for. Seeking a Friend for
Well,
the End of the World, American Ultra, Nashville I did know about,
I was gonna say
and This Is
Nashville
Where I
and
Leave
Friday Night
You.
Lights.
Yeah. Friday Night Lights was not listed in one of the known for things. But yes, Friday Night Lights, Nashville, and then she was in the first season of White Lotus. Like would be her like most recent credit that I would have expected.
Tammy Taylor is that's her character in Friday Night Lights. Like that is no, she is Tammy Taylor.
Right. I know. That's all I was like, these are very strange known for, but okay, fine. So I have some fun facts about
I
her.
think, oh, my first note when we switched to the pet present, I just go, oh, I adore Connie Britton.
I
Literally.
also adore Connie Britton. And so when I watched it, I've watched this season twice specifically.
Yeah,
And I just can't get enough of her. This is my third time watching, and I still will never get enough of Connie Britton.
love her.
So, some fun facts about her. She lives beneath the D of the Hollywood sign, which is random and interesting.
Love
Um,
it.
Her former roommate was Lauren Graham of Gilmore Girls fame.
Love that.
She is also friends with Sheryl Crow. Like, she just really sets this picture of like, oh, this is why I love her. The more I like
Yeah.
learn about her.
Yeah.
And fun fact, she was actually considered for quite a minute for the role of Olivia Pope before it was given to Kerry Washington.
You know, that would have been fascinating. I think it would have been a very different thing, especially with some of the
It would have
race
been.
relations that Scandal got to cover because of that. But like,
And that's why they went with the
she,
black woman instead.
if they had not gone in that direction, she would have been perfect.
Absolutely. And I say that as someone who like deeply adores Kerry Washington
Oh
also.
no, I love Kerry Washington. And
I,
no, and I love the direction they went with Scandal, but I'm
yes,
saying
for
for
sure.
that characterization, if they hadn't gone that direction,
Like if we hadn't seen the scandal we've seen, Connie
right.
Britton would have done excellent. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
Um, Next up we have Dylan McDermott, who we all know, of course, and is constantly confused for Dermot Mulroney. I couldn't remember the last name for a second.
Mm.
And he plays Ben Harmon, who I referred to as the dad, and Dylan because I could not remember his name was Ben when I was taking my notes.
Oh,
But
good.
so we'll see what I actually say when I tell you my notes. But he plays Ben Harmon. He is known for The Practice, Perks of Being a Wallflower, Olympus Has Fallen, and Miracle on 34th Street, 1994. Again, all things I would not have said. This is what he's known for.
Right. He was one of those people where like I definitely have seen his face, but I couldn't tell you a single thing he's done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now I refer to him as the person from American Horror Story, but I knew him before. Like I knew his name before. I just, this is the thing I would refer to him from. Some fun facts about him. He changed his name from Mark to Dylan because his adopted mother, uh, Eve, I think was her name. She adopted him at like age 12 or something. It was after his mom passed away, and it was his stepmom. And she had said she always wanted a child, and if she was going to have one, she would have named him Dylan. And Mark adored her so much that he changed his name to Dylan. And they're so close. Another fun fact about her, she wrote the vagina monologues. So he is royalty of the vagina monologues, which like never would have guessed that.
That is amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
I
Um,
love that.
he also
He is not related to Sean McDermott, the coach of my football team, though.
correct. Or
That's
like three other McDermotts that they told me in the fun facts he was not related to.
okay. That's really upsetting. I was
Yeah.
hoping he would.
No, there's a few of them he's not related to. Um, because I like to bring it back to Mandy Patinkin sometimes for you. He
Yeah.
auditioned for Mandy Patinkin's role on Princess Bride. Um, which
Yeah.
would have been a strange role for him.
That would have been a very strange role. And I was about to say he's too young for that, but I guess he's really not that young.
Maybe not.
He just very much looks too young for that.
Yes. And he's looked the same for so long that
Yeah.
like I think that's a part of it too. But he's normal person age. Like he's not a child. This isn't the first thing
Nor
he's ever done. He just
normal person age.
yeah.
Okay, but to let me hold on. To be fair, Mandy Patinkin is like a solid 10 years older than him.
No, for sure, for sure. And I don't think he would have been good at that role. But
Right.
like he was probably normal person age then too when the role came out.
Yeah, no, I
'Cause it
guess
was what late 90s, early 2000s. I everything is late 90s, early 2000s that came out around then.
no, that's
Did it come
not
out before
Princess
that?
Princess Bride is way older than that. Princess Bride is from the
Mid
it's from
90s?
87. It's from 87.
87.
Yeah, the little boy that the grandpa's reading the story to is Corey Matthews' big brother.
Right. Mm.
Yeah.
For some reason, I decided that was way more recent.
No, it's
Maybe because
80,
he played such a childhood.
right, it's 87, which is like 35 years ago, and he's only 61, so he would have been like mid 20s.
Yeah.
That would have been very young for that role,
Yeah,
especially with the baby face he has. I would have hated it.
that's true. I mean, he obviously did cast in it, but
Right.
I also probably wouldn't have been like, if I was his agent, been like, hey, go audition for that role that you're not going to be good at.
Yeah,
Um, and last but not least, his favorite TV show is I Dream of Jeannie.
I love that.
Isn't that great? Now, to bring it back to Bates Motel, we're going to talk about Thaisa Farmiga, who plays Violet Harmon, who is Vera Farmiga's younger sister. And
You didn't know that by her name. You can know that by her face.
absolutely, or by the amount of times I said it last season when we talked about Bates
Well,
Motel.
that's fair.
um, American Horror Story was her first TV audition, and she just like nailed it. And they were like, "You live here now, like you are one of us now."
Wait,
Um, Vera is her stylist when they go anywhere because she doesn't do that. Like Vera Farmiga one time quoted that like she's like, "This is the girl you dress up and you take to the like awards show," and then she's like, "Let's go get in and out afterwards." Like, and so she's just so chill. So Vera does everything, and Vera is 21 years older than she
I was
is.
gonna say there's an age gap there for
It's a
sure.
pretty big age gap, yeah.
Because how
Um,
old is Taisa? She's what, like 30 maybe?
yeah, yeah, I'd say maybe
I just looked it up. She's
30,
28.
28. Yeah, I mean, she's young, but not that young.
Right, but she's like my age and Vera's not.
Right, right. Um, she was cast in The Nun in 2018, which brought her into the same franchise that Vera Farmiga was in with the Conjuring franchise.
Yes, that
Um,
is.
this is my last Vera Farmiga fact with her. Vera Farmiga offered her a Tacoma to star in her movie Higher Ground because it was the first one that she was self-directing, and she was insisting that Thaisa be in the film. And
Fantastic.
before that, she had actually planned to be an accountant. She had like picked out school and like was ready to go and did not intend to be an actress, but Vera Farmiga pushed her
Fantastic.
into it basically, and here she is. And last, but certainly not least, Evan Peters is Tate
Evan,
Langton.
Evan Peters.
He is known for X-Men, Never Back Down, which I didn't realize. I need to go watch Never Back Down again because I don't remember him being in it.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
I it's possible I haven't seen it, but I don't recall it at all, like that he was in it. And then of course, most recently, he's known for Dahmer and Mayor of Easttown. Um, Only a couple of fun facts about him because everything was like boring. That was a fun fact about him. But this is his favorite season of American Horror Story, at least at the time that
They interviewed him.
coming out. But it was farther in. It wasn't like there had been quite a few seasons before he said this was his favorite because Tate Langdon was his favorite role to play.
Okay.
And something I did not know, but Emma Roberts was actually arrested for domestic violence for abusing him.
Yeah, I knew that
I did
actually.
not know that, but it turns
Yeah.
out he did not press charges or anything, so she was
Okay.
released.
Yeah.
Wild. Wild. And with that, my friends, let's talk about American Horror Story. Season 1, episode pilot.
Right.
So what better way to start a horror show, than with the very traditional trope of a creepy girl standing outside of a creepy house.
I literally just wrote, well, that's lovely.
Yeah. She's just standing outside of the house when these two twin rambunctious boys come up, and she just tells them, "You'll die today."
No, she just didn't say today. She said you'll die if you go in that house.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah, she wasn't just gonna like kill him for fun.
Sure. She should have, but she didn't.
Because they were kind of assholes. That
They
was my
were.
next note. My
Not even
next note
kind
was,
of.
yeah, no, my next note was like those kids are straight assholes, and I almost don't feel bad that they're about
Yeah.
to die.
I absolutely did not feel bad for them. Um, so of course they go into the house and they find a dead possum and they follow
Wait,
sound down. Yes,
I have a note though. My first note before they find the dead possum is that the song that's playing while they're breaking in the house was for sure in Bates.
probably. It feels very much like it would have been.
It was definitely sometime in the last season of Bates because my note goes, this song was in Bates. No,
Was
yes,
it
no,
To Be
it
Loved
definitely.
by You? Was it that one or
Uh,
was it? I
mm,
forgot. I looked it up on IMDb and then I completely forgot which one it was.
oh God, which
Um,
one was it?
oh no, To Be Loved by You was earlier on, and it was in the last season, though, I think, of Bates.
No, I can't remember what one it was.
I'm just gonna make some noises while I look up this song. Da da da. I don't have any more noises left. Um,
It
soundtrack.
was
Baby, you ain't looking right. Is that the one you're talking about? Oh, that's the
uh,
closing. Tonight you belong to me.
yes.
Yes,
Yes. Tonight
yes.
You Belong to Me was the song that they played when he brought her body back home.
Yeah.
I knew it. I knew it was in the last season of Bates. Okay.
Mhm, mhm. Good times, good times. Um, yeah, so these twins are being creepy and following creepy noises as they do. There's
Because
a
going
lot
into
of,
the basement of an abandoned house is always a good idea.
sure, of course, every time. A lot of creepy glass jars. I
Including one that had a dead axolotl in it, and I got really upset for the poor axolotl.
know, I know. What did it do to them? Nothing. Nothing. And so then he hears his twins like, "We're gonna go downstairs, we're gonna do it." And he's like, "I don't think we should." And he, of course, does it. And then he hears noises and he's like, "Hello, who's down there?" Like, first of all, your brother just walked down there. So of course you know he's
Right.
now. You moron.
Yeah.
But he goes down there to find his brother dead, along with a creepy person that we
So,
don't get
yeah.
to see a full description of.
Yeah, no,
Very
it was
brief glimpse. And that's not where the credits come in, as you would
no.
imagine. Instead, we jump to today, which means whatever you want it to mean. I would guess it means October 5th, 2011, but it doesn't state
Yeah.
in the show. And we start with Connie Britton at the doctor for her pregnancy.
Well,
And
not for her pregnancy. I guess it's
her,
for her hormones now that she's miscarried and she's like
right,
dealing with getting her life back together.
sure. I mean, yeah, her pregnancy issues. I said that wrong, but yeah.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. And I also wrote it wrong, but yes, because she was having some issues, and this doctor sucks. That's my next note. He
Oh,
was
yeah, he was a dick.
the worst. Like, I would have, I mean, it seems like at that point they kind of lived in the middle of nowhere. So maybe he was like the only doctor around. Like, especially after knowing how much she's gone through. And he's like, "You could look 10 years younger." And she's like, "No, I'm okay." And he's like, "No, this is what it does." She's like, "Seems sketchy." He's like, "Doesn't matter. You don't need to know anything else." I was like, "I have a lot
She
more
was
questions."
she was like, I don't know the side effects. He's like, the side effects are that you feel better. And I was like,
Yeah,
that's not how
that's not
medicine
how it
works.
goes. No. Yeah, so she goes home and seems she will not be on this medicine, which I would not recommend. And she hears someone in her house. So she
Okay, but
calls them.
at first, she just heard a noise and she was like, there's someone in my house. And I have a genuine question. Am I the only one who assumes animals before intruders?
Um, Well, she didn't have an animal at that time.
No, no, no,
Oh,
I
you do
know.
get animals in your house, though.
Yeah, but like
I think you get animals in your house, but not everyone else does.
I just when I hear noises, like even if it's not in the house, if I hear a noise like around the house, my automatic assumption is like a raccoon before a human. And I don't know if that is a weird thing or not.
I think it's very dependent on the fact that you do get animals in your house. Rachel does that too. She gets animal or not this house, but in the cabin she used to live in.
Yeah. Well, I guess
Um,
it also depends on where you live, like in the like
yeah,
neighbor, like if you live in the middle of nowhere, which it felt like they lived in the middle of nowhere, why would you not
right.
assume it was an animal? I was
I
very
guess that's
confused.
true, but I also like it depends on how paranoid she is as a person, because like
Mm.
I'm also gonna assume it's a person first, even if that
You
doesn't
like you Sadie moves the wrong way and you assume someone broke into your apartment even
right.
though you can see your entire apartment at once.
I can see my entire apartment and have a dog. Like, yes.
Yeah,
So I guess it depends on what type of person she is and how much she spirals or doesn't.
valid.
And so she calls 911 and she's like, someone's in my house. Someone's in my house. And instead of being like, I'm gonna go outside, I'm gonna talk to these people, they're gonna walk me through it, she's like, I'm gonna go figure out who it is. And I was like, no, no. I mean, we wouldn't have a story if she didn't go look, but also like, no.
Yeah.
So she gets upstairs.
She does grab the best knife for the
She
situation
does
though.
grab the best knife. That is correct. And then she goes upstairs and finds Ben cheating on her, which is unfortunate. And that is where we get to
Okay.
the credits. And right before we get to the
Mm,
credits,
I was gonna say, yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's also the most fucking confusing thing in the entire world because when she slashes at him for cheating on her, we hear the creepy little girl with Down syndrome's voice, and I was very confused.
yeah, we just hear you're gonna regret it. And that's when we get to the credits, which it feels like should have happened earlier, but when they actually happen, you're like, nope, that makes sense. That's a good time to break to
They're
the
also
credits.
like very long and aggressive credits.
Yeah, American Horror Story has long and aggressive credits. That is, they
Well,
only
because
get more
here's the
aggressive.
thing, Bates had no credits,
Mm-hmm.
and Stargate has like
A
a good,
normal,
like a normal
yeah,
song kind of credits.
yeah,
This was neither of those.
no, no, and I don't think they get longer. I do think they get shorter over time, but they do get more aggressive over
Oh,
the
good.
season. So
Great.
yeah, they tie in with the season that they're in. So we see the creepy glass jars and whatnot, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then after the credits, we go to Ben and Vivian and Violet. We're driving to their new home and trying to pretend like everything's okay. And so Ben's like, we're happy. And Vivian's like, sure, we're happy. And Violet's like, I hate everyone. And I was like, that's the one. That's the one that's making
Yeah.
any sense. Um, and so they're talking about this. They're like, we should have called you Sunshine. And she's just like, whatever. So they pull up to this house, and immediately she's like, great, we're the Addams family now. Because this creepy old house,
Mm-hmm.
like, falls in the same vein as Addams family, the Bates
Yeah.
home. Like, it's definitely in that vein.
Right. My note here, before I told Vi that I agree with her that that's the Addams Family house, my first note was that I'm not 100% sure the correct response to your husband cheating on you is to move into the creepiest, oldest house you can find.
Well, here's the thing. Maybe. Maybe it is. If your husband's like super freaked out and you're like super chill, like that could be a long-standing punishment.
It could be, but she's definitely more freaked out than he is.
No, she definitely is. She definitely is. And it definitely is like worse for wear on her. So even just now, that like it is on him. But so like in this instance, you're not wrong. But I don't think you should take it off the table forever. I
Fair.
think it's a valid option.
Fair.
Um, and in this moment, we also learn that Ben is a psychiatrist, which is unfortunate because he sucks.
Yeah.
But tis what it is, I guess.
Yep.
Um, So we go inside and we're wandering around, and Vivian drops the dog down and it goes and starts barking at nothing. And it turns out it's
Nice.
barking at a locked basement door.
I was like, always trust the dog.
Always trust the dog.
Yeah.
My gosh. So she finally gets the door busted open because it's like pretty tight, pretty tightly closed. And she goes down the stairs and she doesn't see anything. And then the camera view switches. And it's one of my favorite creepy camera scenes. More so after I know what it's about instead of in the moment. But when you can see through the slats of someone watching.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so you know that there's like an entity down there. You just don't know who or what it is this moment.
Right.
Or by the end of the episode, really, because there's a couple options it could be.
There's a couple of things that I genuinely have no fucking idea what's happening in the show.
That's okay. That's okay. Um, so we go back upstairs and we're talking to the real estate agent, and Ben starts talking about how Vivian is a cellist or was a cellist, but she just hasn't been able to play lately. And this real estate agent, this is not a spoiler per se, but I can never get enough of her because she's insane. Like, she's so matter of fact, but like talks around everything. And she's like,
Yeah.
so I have to disclose for you. And they're like, don't tell me someone died here. She was like, murder suicide. And it's like, okay, sure, sure, that's fine. She's like, never would have seen it coming. Like, those two men, they were great. And she's like, okay, that's great.
She's like, I sold them this house. They were lovely. I don't really know what happened.
Yeah. And so Violet comes back in and she's like, where did it happen? And she's like, in the basement. She's like, we're buying it because we live here now.
Like, what the fuck, Vi? First of all, part of it was that is creepy. I don't agree with your principles. But second of all, you were a child. You don't just tell the real estate agent you're buying the house. That is not your job.
That's exactly what my thought was. Like, you don't have any money. You
Like,
get to
you're not
buy
buying
a
the house.
Right. So we learn, and then we see that Vivian, as much as her persona is trying to say that everything's okay,
Yeah.
she's clearly not over Ben cheating on her yet. So we follow Violet to school.
Well, hold on. I also, in this thing, I had a really intense thought. I spiraled for a hot minute because her and Ben are having this conversation about it being weird for her that somebody died in the house. And he was like, I mean, it happens. It sucks. And I realized, like, in the real world, like, that is the correct response. Like, people are sick and it sucks and it happens. And, like, sure, like, there might be, like, people talk about, like, spirits in houses and whatever. And, like, there might be, like, bad feelings and, like, but in the real world, you can't avoid every place that somebody has died. Like, that's just not a thing.
Right.
And we just, like, deal with our baggage and move on. But, like, in fiction, it, like, becomes the worst thing that has ever happened to a place ever is that someone died there. And I, like, spiraled about that thought. I was like, why do we act like that?
I mean, I don't know. Some people think the energy follows, and it's not just like there's a difference between like if there's a ghost there, sure, whatever. If it's like the energy that's going to affect the people moving in, as opposed to just being another entity there. So I think it kind of depends on what people believe too. Like, what makes them spiral? Like, is it
Right.
fear? Is it like concern about the energy getting into you? Is it like just like
Right.
thinking? If it's just like thinking about it, like just don't think about it because it happens everywhere. But like,
Yeah.
totally get it if it's like an energy thing or like a
Yeah.
violent spirit or something thing.
Right.
But I definitely agree. And it's sometimes he has moments where he says things like a psychiatrist should, even though he sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we follow Violet to school and she is not having a great day, but she's smoking a cigarette, and this girl comes out of nowhere, who her name is Leah, and she just like takes the cigarette and throws it on the ground and is like, I can't believe you're doing this. We outlawed this, yada yada. And then she tries to make her eat the cigarette. And I was like, what is happening? What's happening?
My note says, what kind of 2000s bad teen movie Mean Girl shit is this?
Felt like I was watching, what's that movie with Mandy Moore? Speaking of Mandy Moore.
Saved?
That's the one. That's the one I immediately thought of when I was watching.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I did too. I was like, what are we? It was like, saved like a Cinderella story, like all of those really cliche 2000s mean
Yeah.
girls. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah. And then they were like, don't be mean to her. She's like 12. And I was like, she's not like 12. And then I was like, if she's 28, she was like 16. Like she wasn't
Yeah,
not 12. Like it was like, okay, so she is like a small child.
right.
But instead she spits in her face and runs off. So we go back home and Adelaide,
Adelaide, yeah.
Adelaide has come in and is telling Vivian that she's going to die in there.
I wrote that.
And
I wrote that's good that she's still there. Very comforting.
right. And that's when we meet Constance, who has come over. And she's just the strangest human. And she's talking about Addie just says that to everyone. She's just misunderstood. She's fine. Just ignore her. And then she's like, oh, do you have a dog? She's like, there's room for all these mongrels in my house, even though I prefer a pure breed. I was like, okay, we got a lot of issues happening right now.
Right.
Constance.
So first I wrote that's comforting about Addie, and then I said that's almost as comforting as that mural or Constance's blatant racism.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it's just racism. I think it's
Oh
racism
no,
plus.
I wrote that before she used the word mongoloid, and then I was like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, yeah,
And we feel differently about people with disabilities. Excellent. Well, that's good.
fantastic.
Good for you, Constance. Um,
Great. I do not care for her in any way, shape, or form.
absolutely, absolutely. But she does, however, bring a present to Vivian. And she says this will help to keep the evil spirits out. And it turns out she's brought her sage. And honestly, that's what
Now,
she did. She just
time
didn't.
out though. Don't accept a bundle of sage from a stranger when you
Just
don't
kidding.
actually know what sage is, because I feel as though, like, as I'm watching her light it, I go, you don't know what that is. What if you're just inviting shit into your house? Like, you don't
Sure.
have any idea what you're burning. You are not cleansing your house of shit. I
Yeah.
am not, do not accept sage from strangers.
Right. Like, I think that's a great rule. Like I sent Sage to Rachel when she moved into her house in Michigan, and she didn't know what
But
she was doing, so she immediately lit the fire alarm. Well, it's like you gotta know what you're doing before you start burning sage at
correct.
3 a.m.
First of all, you have to know what you're doing. Second of all, you sent her sage. You are her best
Sure.
friend and you know what you're doing. So that's a little different.
Yeah.
If I needed to sage a place, I would call Monica and have her come and do it. Like, I this lady just like said the most racist, sexist, anti-disability shit in your house, made fun of your dog, invited herself into your shit, looked at your earrings as though she was going to steal them out of your ears, and then gave you something and you just burned it. I am honestly, you deserve whatever's coming to you at that point.
Oops, hold on. My mic unplugged itself. And then, I mean, I stepped on the cord and unplugged it on accident. Like that. Okay. Okay, we're
Yes.
back.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah, I get it. If it wasn't Connie Britton, I would absolutely think she deserved whatever she got. But
But it's
not
Connie Britton, so like,
right. Um, but the next thing she does is she goes into the attic because
I
she
said,
hears something there.
I said, don't do it. Attics are as bad as basements. What are we doing? What?
Yeah. Sometimes worse because they also have the what's the like fluffy stuff that like is makes you really sick. It's like pink
Like,
a lot.
yeah, the insulation for the walls.
Yeah. It's got that like just loose in there half the time.
Yeah.
Like glass shards, like no, don't. It's
Well, I
like
mean, because insulation is made from fiberglass.
right. So it's probably like even more dangerous than going into the basement. Like not this specific basement, but like in general.
Yeah.
And but yeah. So she goes up there, turns on the light, and it's not what you would imagine you were gonna see. Because if a normal person was watching this, they'd be like, oh my God, someone's hiding in the attic. No, it's a sex suit. Did you see that and go, what is this show? What am I watching? Because I feel like that's the moment that a lot of people were like, I don't know what's going on, even more than I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest, the only reason I didn't is because I had heard the phrase rubber man before.
Fair, fair.
But
Yes.
when I tried to explain that to Dan, I realized
That's not normal to talk about.
that that's not none of the show made sense, but that particular arc was very difficult to explain.
Yeah. Well, you'll get answers. Don't worry. It'll make sense by the end.
I sure fucking hope so.
It mostly will. Don't worry. But she immediately tells Ben, she's like, throw it away. And he's like, what? And she's like, throw it away. So he does.
Well, and here's the thing. Even if you found that kind of thing hot, that's
Not when you found in an attic.
first of all, you found it in an attic. You don't know who lived there. You know that the couple that just died in the house was a gay couple that you've never met. And that's just like a lot of bodily fluids that you don't need to also use.
Right. It's not sanitary. I don't care what you do with it. Like, you could burn it, and if it still existed, it would still not be sanitary. Like,
Right.
not happening.
Correct. Not.
And then we meet Tate. And he's talking about our introduction to Tate is as it should be. He's having nightmares about shooting up a school, but he says he only kills people he likes, which is disturbing.
He wants to save them from the fucked up world that we live in.
Right.
Which is like almost beautiful.
Right. But
like it's not. It's not.
Right.
But like almost. Also, I found that whole thing problematic because with that makeup, he reminded me of Andy from Black Veil Brides, and so it was like attractive, but like I knew it shouldn't have been, and I was like, I didn't like it.
Tate is a very conflicting for your own soul character. I'll warn you now. So this is just the introduction. And honestly, every one of Evan Peters' characters in this show will make you feel conflicted in your soul, whether it be because you're like, I kind of feel bad for him as a person, but he's terrible, or like, he's terrible, but he's not really. Like, there's a lot of conflictions going, and they're not always the same. So just stay tuned for that. But
no, I just, to be fair, in this episode, I know it's only one episode, but I felt conflicted in that one moment because I didn't know, but it was because I knew that he reminded me of someone else that was hot. I don't like him. Like, there's no confliction about that yet.
No, yeah, no. And there may or may not be. He's one of those people that, like, some people find him attractive, and like, I do.
I'm not a big
him, like, on the red carpet, but I don't in the
show. I'm not a big Evan Peters fan. Like, I get it. Like, I do get why people think he's attractive, but I'm not a big Evan Peters fan, so like, it doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I will say, like, every character he's played ever, I despise. I hated him as Quicksilver, but I liked his acting. I just hated that character so much.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that I've ever found him attractive while watching him in a show. But
valid.
That said, he then moves on to talk about bloodletting, because that's how you release this pent-up
bad spirits. Yeah.
Right. And then he walks in on Violet, who's cutting herself. And instead of saying, oh my God, what are you doing? He says, oh, you're doing it wrong. Let me tell you how to kill yourself. And I'm like, yeah, this entire scene is a trigger warning.
Right. What the fucking hell?
Yeah. And then we have a brief scene where Ben is sleepwalking. And he lights a fire in the fireplace.
Oh, my note about that scene was completely unrelated to the plot. I just wrote that Dylan McDermott's butt was not as exciting as Christian Bale's, and I was disappointed.
I thought that might be your comment. I did think that might be where you were going to go with that. I am sorry. I do apologize that it's not up to your standards, but it's fine.
I mean, it wasn't bad. It's just...
Yeah. After leaving American Psycho, I understand your concern.
Right. Yeah.
But thankfully, Vivian wakes up and is like, what are you doing? Go to bed. Stop lighting fires in the middle of the night.
Right.
Great. And then we meet Moira. And I honestly forgot how much of an introduction to the season we get in the first episode, which I get because it's a pilot, so it makes sense that we get like everything right up front. But we meet a lot of people this episode. So she is not at all like Maura Rose. She is a very different person.
Yes.
And she is the housekeeper who was there when the men died, and who knows how long before. She said she's been the housekeeper for ages. Um,
Yeah,
so
I would for sure not keep the housekeeper. Just my personal opinion. I'd say thanks, but no
I
thanks.
would absolutely not keep a housekeeper that showed up while I was drying sheets in my yard to tell me she was my housekeeper and she would be there Monday through Thursday. Like
Yeah.
that feels very assumptive, and I would
Yeah.
be very sketched out.
Yeah, no, I don't like any part of it.
No, especially when she spirals into talking about how she's the one who found the bodies of the two men who were dead and cleaned them up. And
Yeah, no.
yeah, and so of course, Vivian's like, yeah, let's go inside and have tea and we'll talk about this. You could totally work for me. Like, I've known you 3 seconds. And who knows if you killed the guys who were here before, but like, no one knows. It's fine. That would be
It's
my
fine.
first thought. It's like, I found the bodies. Like,
Right.
did you put them there? Like, I have a lot more
Yeah,
questions for them.
I agree that I have questions.
Yeah. But she's decided she's going to hire her. She's asking her about cleaning for other people, blah, blah, blah. And then Ben walks in, and we get a fun camera shift that's similar to the one, not as well done, but is similar to the one we see from Bates Motel with Norma and Norman, where she shifts
Yeah.
from old Mora to young Mora.
I was like, what the fuck is happening to Ben right now?
Yes. And so we see that from Vivian's point of view, we see this really old, homely housekeeper. But from Ben's point of view, we see this young, saucy maid, which are very different people.
Very.
Because she's really good at leaning into what people need her to be or want her to be. Um, and then he's like, you're gonna hire this person, blah, blah, blah. And then he tells her something about like, you're never gonna forgive me. And I was like, first of all, she doesn't ever have to forgive you if she doesn't,
Right.
because she's an adult and has rights.
Because, oh,
But
I literally wrote, I mean, she actually doesn't.
right. Um, but on that note, we go back to Tate. And he's in his session with Ben, who's like talking about all of these like issues with the medicine he's on. He's like, are you taking it? And he's like, oh, I had some issues. He's like, did you have light sensitivity? And he's like, yeah. And then he starts going off on this tangent about people lying. And he's like, are you saying I'm lying? And he's like, yeah, light sensitivity is not a side effect
Side
of
effect.
Lexapro. And I was like, okay, let's start over. I absolutely had sensitivity to light and every other sense of my being when I was on Lexapro. Like, so it's not a good one, but it is one that happens.
Yeah.
And also, like, I saw this in the notes later. Like, he's meant to be on an antipsychotic drug.
Right.
Lexapro is
Lexapro.
antidepressant.
Correct.
Like,
My thought about that was that that was not the correct drug for what was happening to him.
right. So, yeah, so he goes off, and then Tate goes on this big thing about using his dick and all this stuff, and it's so obnoxious. And then immediately we go to him. That's his words.
He's with
Talking
Vi.
with Violet, but I don't know what that word is. Discussing scars with Violet. That's the words.
Yep, and I wrote
And
this is like the most fucked up couple. Oh, also before that, when he was talking about when he's having this conversation with Ben, he said Ben says that that there are people who will never be cured, and he was like, "Do you think that's me?" And I said, "I think that's you. I think you're like I think you
yeah,
are not. There's no help for you."
I think this is it for you, Tate. Sorry, dude.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. Um, and it doesn't change my mind whenever he's talking when they're discussing their scars together. And then
correct.
like all of these people are so trusting. Like Violet's just like telling him about her mom having a miscarriage and telling her about all these scars she had and whatnot. And then Ben comes in and just runs Tate off. And he's like, you are not allowed here. And then he's like, don't ever talk to him again. And of course, Violet, teenage girl.
Takes that really well. Yeah.
So then we have a scene that has become a running joke for Dylan McDermott. Um, not only in American Horror Story times, but in the world. Because he walks in to Maura doing inappropriate things to herself, and he goes into the next room and starts jerking off and crying.
Yeah,
And
I
then he
was,
never lives that scene down again. Like as Dylan McDermott, never lives that scene down again.
you know,
And I feel bad for him because it wasn't his direction that made that happen, but
right.
it is a scene you're not gonna forget. Especially
Correct.
the next thing that happens.
Oh, that's when I wrote, what the fuck is even the plot of this show?
Oh, you'll get there. It just like runs around it for a bit. You'll get to it.
Like straight up,
Hmm.
no idea what the fuck is the plot of this show right now.
Yeah, that's correct. Correct. Because the next thing we do is see a deformed guy in the sheets saying, "Your family's in danger." And so he runs downstairs to see this guy who's no longer there. So we go back to Vivian, and she's bringing in like groceries or something. And all of a sudden, all the doors are open, and she hears Addie laughing. And it's like such a creepy scene for something that you don't know what's happening at the moment.
Right. I said Addie's psychopath in case that wasn't clear from the beginning. Like
Sure.
from the very first scene of her standing outside of the house, she's fucking nuts.
Absolutely. And she has some weird spirit thing going on with her, which we see because in the next moment, when she turns around to tell Addie, what is she doing here and why is she doing this? The two dead twins show up behind her. And
Cute.
Addie's the only one who knows they're
She's like, it wasn't me, it was the twins. Like, I'm sorry, what?
there. Yeah. Which is worse for sure, for sure. I'd rather this girl who doesn't seem violent, just seems strange, coming in and breaking in my house, opening up uh, cupboards as opposed to children I can't see.
Absolutely.
So she has Constance over so she can tell Addie to stop coming into the house. And she's like, she can't come in anymore. Addie, she's like, Addie, are you listening? And Addie just keeps talking about the twins, and she's like, can I pet your dog? Over and over and over. And she's like, no, you can't pet the dog. And when they go to leave, Addie, of course, pets the dog and immediately gets bit. It's like, okay. So also according to the dog, she's not great either.
Right.
And she grabs Addie and she's like, listen to me, and like shakes her. And when they leave, Constance turns around and real hardcore threatens Vivian that if
Yeah.
she ever touches Addie again, she will strangle her. Like, which like is fair. You've put your hands on another woman's child. I
Right.
I would have also probably reacted the same way, except I would have
Mhm.
also been less chill in the beginning when I was just like, when she was just like, oh yeah, Addie will find a way to get in, no worries, all the time.
Right.
Like I don't think
Yeah, no,
that's how that goes. So we go to Ben, who's trying to report Tate, but he doesn't have any information about him.
which seems concerning that you are a doctor treating someone that you don't have any information on.
Right.
I was worried.
Yeah, kind of missed the mark a bit, but that's okay. And then Moira comes in there and tries to seduce him. And he's like not doing a great job at putting up a fight, but at least he's pretending to put up a fight, I
Right. And
guess.
this is where I got really concerned because I was like, is she actually young or is she actually old? Like, I don't know what the fuck is happening right now. And then
In the
when
eyes of the
he
beholder.
when he gets caught, Vi sees him the same way that her mom sees him. So I'm like, no, she is actually old. Like, so he's just like making nookie with a 90-year-old lady. What the fuck is
Mm-hmm.
going
Mm-hmm.
on?
Yep. That'll become clearer and clearer over time. Um,
Don't worry, I'm even more confused about her at the end of the episode. So,
great. Um, well, Violet goes back to school, and because she's so upset, she gets into a fight. And because she wants to keep smoking and she wants to also get punched in the face, I guess. So
apparently,
she ends up
that's
burning Leah because she's also not doing well.
Yeah,
mentally.
no.
Which is a bummer for her, but like is what it is. Her psychiatrist dad should be better at taking care
Being
of
a
her.
dad
Sure, yeah.
or a
Um,
psychiatrist.
so we go back to Vivian, who at first I thought was painting over the creepy wall. Turns out she was just painting around it. Or
Oh
not
no, no,
painting.
she
Oh,
wasn't painting, she was taking the shitty wallpaper
oh,
off
right.
to see what the painting was before she decided what to do with it.
Yeah.
Which is
And
like the correct thing to do because painting over wallpaper is a
oh my God, a
fucking,
nightmare.
yeah, it's never the correct answer.
No. But it's also not the correct answer to just leave a creepy mural up in your house, but whatever. Um, so then Ben walks in and he's trying really hard to get back in good graces with Vivian. And he's like, everything's fine. We're great. And then she like turns him down and he starts throwing stuff around. I'm like, literally this afternoon, you were being seduced by the maid. Like, and you're mad at her for not being ready to trust you again yet? Like, are you serious?
Yeah, that's a choice that he made that I
Yeah,
for sure don't agree with.
right. And this is when we learn that not only did he just cheat on Vivian, but it was with his 21-year-old student.
Love to hear it.
Yeah. And she said something about like, she was like, this isn't about you. You're such a narcissist. And I was like, he is a narcissist, like straight up a
Yeah.
narcissist. And then I just, but I hate this guy. Um, and then they're going through this whole rigmarole and they get into like this passionate embrace. And then he's just like, we're gonna be happy here. And I was like, you're not gonna be happy
Well,
here.
here's the
But okay.
thing. The whole rigmarole that they get into is because they're angry and they're yelling at each other. It's the first time since the affair that either one of them has said their actual thoughts and
Right.
feelings. So even
Mhm.
though it's aggressive and wrong and ridiculous, it's the most healthy thing they've done so far in the entire show. So I was like,
Right.
fine, if that's when you want to fuck, like I get it. You
Yeah.
needed to get that out of you.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think sex is the correct choice when you still have that much anger, but also letting your anger out and expressing it to each other is in fact what you should have done 6 months ago. Like,
Right. Yeah,
so I
absolutely.
was conflicted a little bit there.
Uh, yeah. Welcome to American Horror Story. Um, and then I go back to Vivian and Violet, and Violet comes in and she's got a bit of a bruised face, and she's talking about and to get into fights. And Vivian's like, "Yeah, well, I'm sure the other person looks worse than you." And like, she's like, "What happened? Everything's gonna be okay. I know everything sucks. We can move you around to schools." And I was like, "Or you could just like train her to be a person. Like, she's got a
Yeah.
lot of issues that like parents should deal with that they're just not dealing with, but that's fine."
But then she does also apologize for that. She's like, I'm sorry
Right.
that like we haven't been good to be around. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot happening and it's not fair.
Yes, absolutely. And then she talks about how she's not scared of everything, and Vivian is scared of everything. And I was like, I'm Vivian. I get it. I get it. But also, like, she should be scared of everything. Everything's terrifying in this house.
Right. Like in this particular moment, I am pro being afraid of everything.
Everything. Right. So we go back to Violet and Tate, and she's telling him about this fight and everything. And he says, you have to scare her. He's like, you can't kill her. You can't do this. You just have to scare her to get rid of her. And they're going back and forth, and they've decided that they're going to end on her being a coke dealer to get her into the house.
Right. And I said,
Why she never
let's,
questioned that she needed to come into the basement? Like,
yeah. I said, while the sentiment is fair, taking life advice from a sociopath doesn't feel like the way I'd go.
right, it's not the choice I would make. Um, absolutely. So Vivian's back in her room getting ready for bed, and we see him come in with the sex suit on, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I thought you threw that away. Oh my gosh, round two, yada yada." And except it's not Ben because Ben is downstairs turning on the gas stove in his
Uh,
sleepwalking and playing with fire.
I literally just wrote all of this. No.
Yeah. So they're having this whole thing, Viv and suit guy. And Constance comes in the middle of it and she just looks at Ben and she says, "Now is not your time."
I said, okay, Ben, you're fucked. You're fucked.
This isn't great. When Constance is
No,
giving you advice, not great.
nope.
Um, so then he goes back in the bedroom, his normal, mostly normal self, and Viv looks traumatized.
Yeah.
But then they're both just like, "Okay, I love you," and go to bed. I was like, no conversation. This would have been a good time for a conversation, I felt like.
Yeah.
But fine, fine. We'll put it under the rug like everything else.
Right.
So Violet then goes to Leah and is taking her down to the basement as Tate instructed. So Tate's down there, and suddenly, though, they hit the lights and it's just chaos. And it's like the creepiest montage of scenes.
It's like
There's the
screaming and
the creepy person from before that killed the boys is there, and you get to see them a bit better, but still not enough. And
look, it looked like a goblin from Harry Potter, but like worse.
yeah, and then you see Tate protecting Violet because obviously it's not real contained what happens down there. And when the lights come back on, Tate's back in his chair, Violet's standing by the stairs, and Leah's on the ground with scratches on her face. And naturally, she jumps up and runs away, as I would. And Violet says she never wants to see him again, which is what you tell a psychopath. Good. It's good for
A psychopath who we've already determined has a fear of rejection and is not handling
right.
being told
Absolutely.
no very well.
Absolutely. So we go to Ben on his what I imagine is a daily run when the deformed guy from the sheet starts following him again.
Yep.
And they're running off after each other, and he finally gets him to stop, and he just says, "The family's in danger. You have to get out." And Ben's like, "Absolutely not. What's happening?" And
Right.
like, "Well, I have brain cancer, so they're not going to put me in an institute, yada yada." And then we learn that he killed his entire family by lighting them on fire very carefully because of the voices he heard in his head in that house. And when Ben walks away, we go back to this guy. I don't remember his name right now, but and he has a creepy smile on his face.
Yeah. I
And then we have two more scenes before the end, which of this very long episode. And I'm so sorry. It's the beginning of a whole
yeah.
era. So
Yeah.
we go to Constance and Maura, who we learn know each other. And Constance is trying on Viv's earrings that she was eyeing because she just wanders around in their house whenever she wants. And Maura is telling her that that's not her. She can't do it. Like, she's watching out for the lady of the house, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And Constance gets mad. And when she goes to walk away, she just says, "Don't make me kill you again."
I wrote again. What?
Again. So
I-
stay tuned.
Again, reasons why I don't even know how I feel about anything.
Totally fair. Totally fair. But that's not quite the end.
Oh,
We
it's
have one more
not.
scene with Viv and Ben. And she's asking what he wants for dinner. And she says she wants Indian food. And he says, "You only want Indian food when you're pregnant." And in less than 24 hours, she's found out she's pregnant.
Yeah, the timing on that was really fucked. To me, I didn't agree with that at
Mhm.
all.
Yep. Yep. Stay tuned. Um,
And I also assume it's the weird demon that fucked her in the rubber suit's baby and that she's gonna like die. That's also my assumption.
everything
But
happens for a reason in this show, even when it feels like it doesn't. Um, but that's the end of episode 1 of American Horror Story.
yeah, I got nothing.
Yeah. Well, do you want to punch someone in the face?
Constance, because she's a cunt.
Totally fair. Totally fair. I'm gonna pick Tate because he's just a psychopath.
Yeah.
Um, and he is like really overreacting to everything that Violet says.
Mhm.
Um, do you have an MVP? Who did you like? Who was your MVP? I guess like is a strong word, but who was your MVP?
I mean, I can't really think of a single moment that didn't bother me. Um, so I guess I'll go with the real estate agent because she feels like the only person who isn't absolutely fucked in the show.
But I was also gonna pick, but totally fair. I guess I'm gonna go moment by moment then, as opposed to as a whole.
Yeah?
So my MVP this episode is going to be Constance, simply for the reason that she saved them when Ben was sleepwalking.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, a bit of a trivia for you and some other such things. Um, so Jessica Lange initially turned down this role many times, and Ryan Murphy basically begged her to do this role, so she did. Um, there is a goof when he's turning on the valve of the gas stove. He's turning it the wrong way.
Correct.
And then I have some connections I want to include. Connections. Where's the connection? There it is. Okay. There were so many things referenced in this first episode that like they went out of their way to include. They mentioned Vertigo. They used the music from that film. Well, they didn't mention Vertigo. They used music from the film.
Yeah.
Adam Sandler was mentioned. They used the music from Twisted Nerve, which I don't know what I need to watch. They used the music from What Lies Beneath.
Ugh, I love that.
They mentioned Dora the Explorer and Go Diego Go.
They sure did.
Um, they had they have a couple of like Watch Mojo things about American Horror Story. One's top 10 American Horror Story moments. Um, and one is top 10 scariest American Horror Story scenes. And the twins actually ranked on that list. Um, but then I discovered a whole new world.
Oh God.
There is a YouTube channel that I believe is also a podcast, from my understanding, called TV Sins.
Okay.
And they go through and they do an analysis where they mention every TV sin, quote unquote, of the episode. And so this one was everything wrong with the American Horror Story pilot. And there was a lot of like, this is cliche, which was like, it was meant to be in the pilot.
Yeah.
So that's gratuitous sin. And but then there was like stuff that I was like, that doesn't even make sense. Like that was like very specific to the show. That was like the time when he was like, it was such a cliche of him jacking off and then seeing the deformed guy. And I was like, that's absolutely not a cliche. Like that has never happened in anything else ever, but fine.
Correct.
And but it was like 10 minutes long and it was pretty funny. And it tallied 83 sins at the end, and they gave it a sentence of gimp sex. And it's just like
I hate that.
a random thing, but it was correct. That was the video. I was like, I just found a video and I need to watch this for 10 minutes, then I'm leaving the office.
Yeah,
That
I
was the
hate
video I
it.
found. I was like, I need to see what this is. So it was actually very funny to watch, even though I disagreed with about 70% of it. Um, and I think if it comes up again, like this is the only one I did for American Horror Story. But if I like see other shows that I've watched on there, I would probably go watch it. So if you're like interested in that kind of stuff, it's just called TV Sins on YouTube, and it's pretty funny. Um, but yeah, and that's that. Since we are in a new world, do you have any predictions for next week?
Like I said, I think that she is pregnant with a weird rubber baby. I think that I'm mostly fucking confused about everything. I have no idea who is alive and who is not on this fucking show. Um, I don't think Tate is real. I think he's also part of the fucking weird house spirits. Um, and yeah, I don't know.
I like it. Oh, I do want to make a caveat. Do not watch the TV Sins episode until you've watched the entirety of the season one because it does give spoilers. So, like, for those of you like me who have watched it multiple times, you should definitely watch this. But, like, Mary Kate, do not watch this. So,
Valid.
but yeah, those are all valid and interesting thoughts. And I forgot how much was included in this episode. So, I like don't even know what's happening next episode. Let's see. It is. Yep, it's going to be an interesting one. So stay tuned.
Oh God.
Stay
Okay.
tuned. This entire season is just like one wild ride after another. So
Great.
I hope you have a great time. And I'm glad we're here on this journey together.
Fantastic.
And I hope all of you continue to stay with us. They will not all be 70 hours long after this one, I promise.
No.
But yeah. So if you have some thoughts about it, if you have predictions and you haven't seen the show yet, please email us deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can find us on all the social media at Death and Aliens. If you have spoilery thoughts or thoughts about literally anything American Horror Story, feel free to reach out to me directly at CECloud13.
And you can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And we will see you for our Sci-Fi Sunday that is being told to be a big one. So if you're keeping up, join us.
All
See
right.
you then. Bye.
Bye.